morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Unity of Charlotte. We're delighted to see all your happy faces here. And if you're online watching us via Zoom, welcome. We're glad to see you there. My name is Reverend Lisa Herklotz. I'm the co-minister along with Reverend Jim Ernstsen, who will be giving the message today, so you'll be hearing from him shortly. Just one quick reminder, if you have your cell phone with you, please turn it to mute or silence, or you can turn it off. That'd be okay with us too. It just helps us, especially because our friends on Zoom will hear everything going on in here. So, we are here for a purpose, and that purpose is what we call our mission statement. So I invite you to speak aloud with us the mission statement of Unity of Charlotte. Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Do we have anyone here for the first time? A couple people here and here and here. Well, welcome. Thanks for here joining us for the first time. I know some of you have been at Unity, and maybe some of you this is brand new. We're glad to have you here. If the ushers and greeters have not already done so, they have a welcome packet for you there. So you've already got it good? All right. They're on the ball. I love you. Thank you, ushers and greeters. We appreciate that. We also invite you to stay afterwards. We have a little fellowship, coffee and tea. We invite you to stay, get to know us a little bit better. Let us get to know you. And if you have any questions about Unity, please come speak to myself or any of the members here. But you also can find out more about Unity in a lot of different ways. We invite you to check out our website. We have a newsletter that goes out each week. We have a Facebook page, and we have a YouTube channel where all of these Sunday services get posted. So you can go back and watch any service from probably years back. I know Alan is both our videographer and historian, and he's got talks going back to probably 40 years ago. Maybe not quite so much. We invite you to check that out. Also, our bulletin board. We have our bulletin board up. For some of you who don't know, we're fairly new to this location. This is our 6th Sunday here, so we're still working out a few things. We're very delighted to be a part of the St. Luke's Lutheran project of leasing space out to other spiritual organizations. And it's turning out to be a very beautiful partnership. All right. On that note, let's move into prayer as we open our service. I invite you to sit back, gently close your eyes if that's comfortable, and take a nice, slow, calming breath in. And a nice, slow, relaxing exhale out. As we move into prayer together, we move inward to our heart center, where in a moment, we'll take a moment of silence to just remember and bring into awareness our connection and communion with that which we call God, or Source, or Divine Mind, or Spirit. Ever present, living, breathing, and expressing as us. As we claim this presence of Spirit, we open and remember the deep well of joy we have within us at all times, even when we appear to be struggling or facing a challenge. We know in this worldly existence, challenges come and go. They come and go. But there is within us, in the deepest part, at the core of our very being, the presence and light of Spirit, ever active in our lives. And when we pause and now claim that, We bring forth that light into even the darkest moments of our life. It is through this light that we connect to each other. Whether we are in agreement, disagreement, or anything in between. This love transcends all of that. And this is the Christ light we are meant to be in this world. We now claim it, we open to it, and we express it in our heart, in our minds, in our words, and in our actions. And we see it blessing this world, our spiritual community here in Unity, our individual lives, but indeed it is not limitless. It is not limited. We bless the world in every part, but especially those where there's pain and suffering. We see the light of Christ awakened. In joy and gratitude, knowing this is so, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, and so it is. Amen. I'd like to now open it up for speaking and being aloud. If you have someone that's on your heart that you would like to lift in prayer, we can do the prayer oneness first. Yes. All right, let's do that. All right. This is our unity prayer oneness. I invite you to join me as we speak this out loud. There is one presence and one power in my life and universe. God, the good, omnipotence. We claim and affirm this presence as love in our lives. And now we're going to open up the space for anyone you are holding and want to uplift in prayer, any situation that's on your heart that you want to uplift in prayer. I will open it up in silence. You may speak that name or that situation out loud. In faith, we know each and every name or situation that has been spoken aloud or spoken silently in our hearts has already been heard, that Spirit is working in and through that person or situation to bring about the best and good. So it is. Amen. I'd like to invite up Sean and Maria to read from our daily word.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
La palabra de hoy es gracia. Al abrir mi corazón a la gracia divina, me llena una paz imprescindible. La gracia es la conciencia de que esté donde esté, Dios está presente. Es mi recordatorio para permitir que Dios se manifieste en mí. La gracia me asegura que nunca estoy solo o mi viaje por la vida. Sin importar lo que haga o deje de hacer, soy un ser querido y aceptado incondicionalmente a nivel espiritual. La gracia impregna cada aspecto de mi existencia. Es saber que soy amado, incluso en momentos de soledad. Es el sorprendente camino que se abre ante un desafío aparentemente insuperable. Es sentir el poder de la vida divina, recorriendo todo mi ser, incluso cuando enfrento problemas de salud. Estos son solo algunos de los múltiples modos en los que experimento la gracia. No necesito merecerla, es un regalo divino que está siempre disponible para mí. La gracia sea con todos ustedes. El libro de Hebreos 13:25.
Grace. Through divine grace, I am abundant and blessed in every way. Grace is an awareness that wherever I am, God is. It is a reminder to let God be God within me. Grace assures me that I am never alone on my journey through life, that no matter what I do or fail to do, I am unconditionally loved and accepted at the level of spirit. Grace touches every area of my life. In a lonely moment, grace is the overwhelming awareness that I am loved. It is a surprising wave through a challenge I considered unstoppable. It is my whole body suddenly growing with the power of divine life, even as I experience a health challenge. These are just some of the many ways I experience grace. Grace need not be, nor can it be, earned. It is a divine gift, available at every moment. As I open my heart to divine grace, I am filled with indescribable peace. Grace be with all of you. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 25.
Anybody else lose their power last night? I was without power last night. Yes, and if anyone knows how a minister works, they finish up their talk on a Sunday night. Saturday night. What did I say? Sunday night? On a Saturday night. So Saturday night is putting the final touches on a Sunday talk, a Sunday message. So here I am, lights go out. I can't even see my keyboard that I'm working on my laptop. We break out the candles, and I'm working on that. So we're going to see if in the light of day, this talk turns out the same as it did in candlelight. So let's see how that works. We're going to talk today about joy. We're going to talk about joy. And I'm happy to talk about joy. It is, because when I speak about a subject, I get to be right there with that. And so we're going to talk about joy. We're going to talk about joy in a different way. We're going to talk about it in terms of a roadmap to joy. Who else used to fold up a map like me? Yeah. I know what age you guys are now. I used to fold up a map on our family vacations, and we would drive all over the western United States, so there was a lot of time in between attractions that I had to fold maps, and I got used to doing maps. But we're gonna switch into a new format here. We're gonna use actually GPS instructions today. We're updating this today. So it might sound something like, in 600 feet, turn left. Or, like me, throughout my day in looking and searching for joy, sometimes it might be recalculating. Please make a U-turn. That's sometimes what happens in our lives as well. So what we're going to find out is that joy actually starts in faith. It goes down imagination lane, and then it ends up on the side of town that we call contentment. So we're going to explore that idea. Faith, imagination, and contentment. So let's talk about faith. And of course we know, we've spoken to this before, expectation of things not seen is that definition of faith. Expectation of things not seen. And what if it was that we woke up each morning, instead of waiting for things to happen to us to evaluate and then decide if we're going to be joyful or not? What if we used faith and said, I am going to be joyful today, regardless of the first couple of things that show up in my daily work or daily world? Choosing joy right off the bat is what I'm suggesting. And I'm going to argue that carrying that expectation, at least in my heart, will attract those positive elements in my life that I want to live with and experience. So it's the expectation of that as well. Can I get my head around the idea of joy? Can I have faith in that idea of joy in my life? Getting my head around the idea that joy is an integral part of who I am. It's not something outside of me that I have to struggle with. That's where I'm making the shift. And I'm suggesting that we go from at this point as well, that our soul, that individualization of spirit that we talked about yesterday, we talked about soul and spirit and how we're that individualization of the divine spirit, how that includes joy. And we've inherited that. We've inherited that by that act of creation. By that act of creation, I have joy right here and right now available to me. Now, sometimes I forget it, but we already have that. And sometimes I need that nudge or that reawakening of that remembrance of that joy within my life. So that's faith. We started in faith, in our journey, in our roadmap, we started in that section called faith. And now we traveled a little while and we're going to go to imagination. We're going to take that left turn on imagination, right? Imagination is actually one of our 12 powers that we talk about. One of the 12 powers that Charles Fillmore wrote about. The 12 powers of mankind. And when we put those 12 powers together, because imagination isn't the only thing, there is faith and there's love and there's wisdom. But imagination, when we put all 12 of those things together, we have our true state. We have our Christ nature of who we are. And of course, we want those 12 things in balance. We don't want too much imagination and nothing else, because that would be out of balance. Too much imagination and nothing else, I might just sit under a tree and daydream all day. That might feel cool for a while, but it's out of balance. So we're going to look at imagination, remembering that we want to keep that in balance with everything else as we embrace that Christ nature in our world. So generally, we think of this basic level of imagination as the ability to visualize or to conceptualize our senses, our thoughts, our feelings. The ability to conceptualize. That's what that imagination is. So we're going to do a little experiment here today. And this is only going to take us maybe a minute. I'm going to ask us that we explore this, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. This is only going to be for 1 minute, so it's not a big deal. But let's go ahead and close our eyes just for 1 minute. We're going to imagine, we're going to use this state of imagination just for a moment as we imagine a beautiful garden. Here's where we visualize using our senses. I'm going to walk us through using our 5 senses as we see in our mind's eye that using our sight, we see what that garden looks like. We see the colors, the textures, the light and the shade of that garden. We use our sense of smell as we experience this garden, again in our mind. What does that garden smell like? For me, it's an earthiness, it's a freshness, maybe even a smell of cut grass. And what do I hear as I'm experiencing this garden? I hear the birds. I hear the wind and the rustle of leaves. To me, that's using my imagination to hear this garden. And with my sense of touch, I feel the sun on my back. I feel the wind on my face. Maybe you feel a breeze on your skin. And there's a sense of taste. At least in my garden, there's a patch of strawberries. For you, it might be anything else. It might be berries. And you see those. You touch them. You might even smell them. For me, I pick that strawberry and I anticipate popping it into my mind, into my mouth. So let's go ahead and come back from this experiment. You can open your eyes at this time and come back into this room. I heard some feedback from here. Oh, it's the generator. Yeah, it is. So, what happened for me as I moved through this imagination exercise is I got deeper and deeper into that experience. Using the five senses, I got deeper and deeper. And think about what you felt like and where you were with this experiment. But by the time I got to the strawberry and touching and picking that strawberry and anticipating the strawberry, my mouth was watering. I don't know about anybody else. I was having a physical experience through my imagination. So using the mind and experiencing this, it affects us in this world as well. Our mind doesn't always know the difference between what we're thinking and what's actually in this world. The imagination is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm suggesting that we can use imagination in our lives, not just to visualize this garden that we just did or anything else with our five senses, but that in thought and feelings, these things in our external world, yes, they'll show up, but we can also focus on our thoughts and our feelings, not just physical things in this world, but those things in our heart as well. So when we're using our imagination for how we feel and how we walk through this world together, that's the beauty of imagination in this heart, in this life, in this map that we're following. Throughout the week, I usually write an affirmation, at least for myself, and I'd like to share it with you as well. I have an affirmation that I'm going to use for the next 6 or 7 days that focuses on joy within my life. And it goes like this. I envision how I would feel being a joyful person. I would invite you to say it out loud with me. So I'm going to say a quick phrase and then you'll repeat it after me. I envision how I would feel being a joyful person. Yes. Like I said, I invite you to take that with you throughout the week as well. So what does imagination, we just experienced imagination on a very worldly, five senses kind of way. What does imagination from our higher consciousness look like? So we're taking a step beyond imagination of gardens and strawberries and feeling that warmth of the sun on the back. How do we get to experience that in a higher consciousness as well? Well, imagination from a higher consciousness is not simply senses, thoughts, and feelings. It's the ability to visualize, to conceptualize, to envision the ideas and the truths and the principles that we know. So this is taking it the next step. This is taking it to a higher level as well. Those divine laws and how they work within our world is a function of imagination as well. It's just a step into conceptualizing through the principles that we know are true in this world. Ideas, truths, principles, divine laws. How do we, and I guess I ask myself the question, how do we know what those things are? We've just listed off truths, principles, laws, but how do we know what they are? That's the trick. How do we know what those divine laws within our world are? We talked yesterday as we were going through our class, wonderful class, because we had really good ideas, we shared with each other, and we learned from each other. But we talked a little bit about when we were in our affirmative prayer class. Affirmative prayer, if you don't know, is a unity way of praying. It's a little bit different from the traditional way that we've learned as children, or throughout our other experiences with traditional religion. Affirmative prayer is a prayer where we actually state that which we know to be true within our world. So we're not asking for things, but we're stating the truth of these things. But in that statement of truth, we have to know what is the truth of our world. We have to know what that principle is that we're working on in order to include it in our affirmative prayer. So we're not asking to be healed, but we're stating that we are health and wholeness, and that we are healing as we speak. That's the affirmative prayer method. So declaring what we know to be true in our lives is key to affirmative prayer. How do we know? How do we know what those truths are? We come back to that question. How do we know what those truths, those principles, those ideas are? I jotted down a few ideas, and maybe you'll agree with me. Maybe you have more on a Sunday. Those are the ideas that we talk about. Those are the ideas that we broach here on a Sunday. Classes that we take, learning those divine truths from the classes that we take on Zoom, from Unity Worldwide, reading the daily word in our own daily devotion is a way to remind ourselves what that principle is. Reading a good book, The Mysteries of John, that is a way to remind ourselves and to know what we already know, but to remind ourselves the truth of what we call truth within unity. Or maybe it's talking to a like-minded friend over the phone and reminding each other what that truth really is. These are the things that supercharge the imagination in the world of knowing the truth. We can use imagination to envision ourselves smack dab into the middle of that truth, of that principle, of that idea that we're talking about. And this reminder using imagination is being right there in the middle of our Christ nature. Using imagination to bring us to that point, to realize our own divinity. So again, my affirmation, I envision how I would feel being a joyful person. So what is this not? And we're still on, we've gone from faith to imagination. What is imagination not for us in our lives? I would suggest that imagination is not just positive thinking. So it's not just, oh, everything's fine, and denying what's actually showing up in front of us in our lives. So it's not just positive thinking. It's not being a Pollyanna within our lives. Who remembers David Mills? That's the face that comes to my mind. It's not just being a Pollyanna. It is about a deep faith as we've traveled into or onto imagination lane and having that gift of divinity within our lives. It's a setup. It's anyone who's played basketball, it's a layup. It's not difficult. This is the easy part, is being there and enjoying joy within our lives. It is within the Gospel of Luke being told that it is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. God's good pleasure. It's not, this has to be hard, you have to work for it, and sometimes you're going to get it. This is God's good pleasure that you feel joy within your life. Like I said, it's a layup. Take the ball. Take the 2 points. It's what I use in my own life as the universe is conspiring in my favor. If my eyes are open enough to see it, if my eyes are open, sometimes it's just being aware of it. Sometimes it's the opportunities of those joys that are just right there and taking advantage of it, being aware of it, noticing what makes your heart sing. Do you know what makes your heart sing? That's part of the process. If you don't know, you might have a hard time finding it. So where did this joy roadmap take us? We started out in faith, we went down imagination lane, and now we're at contentment. Now we've arrived at contentment. This is where our heart is full. This is where we have no fear in our lives. This is where I'm connected to others. This is the world around me has beauty. That's contentment in my life. I'm aware of my connection to the divine, which is always here. I've never lost it. Sometimes I'm rediscovering it, but I've never been separated. And can you remember a time when you felt that feeling of contentment? How did you feel just to yourself? What was contentment like? Do you want to get back there? Contentment. For me, I was firmly embedded in contentment on Thursday night. Anybody who was with me Thursday nights at Sir Edmund Pub, we sat out on the patio, we spoke about, what did we speak? Eschatology. I'm not going to go into that. You have to show up for pub theology to go deep like we did into some of these things. We had a drink, we ate dinner, we sat on that patio in bliss. God missed it. We talked about you. There was contentment there. And I know it. There was joy that I moved from faith, imagination, into contentment. And for those of you there, you probably saw that smile on my face as well. Joy in the journey to contentment is God-given. It could be thought of as our spiritual superpower, and I transcend my perceived limits of this world. Honestly, I started, and maybe those folks in pub theology, honestly, I started with a heavy heart. We spoke about some heavy things before we got going, but I took that trip. I took using that roadmap through imagination lane and into contentment. So instead, I chose to find joy in my heart, and I was embedded in that spiritual realm of contentment as well. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I made it there. Know that I love you. God bless you. I appreciate you. And I see Christ. Namaste. Let's go ahead and move into our meditation time. So I encourage you to move around a little bit, uncross your legs, maybe have your feet on the ground, which is grounding yourself and feeling that as well. Having your hands in your lap, on your legs, palms up, palms down, whatever feels right for you. But the purpose of this, as we breathe, as we move into this time, is to move from our head, move from our thinking, letting that go, and moving into our heart space. Moving into that place where we feel, moving into that place where we know the truth of our lives. That place where we know our natural state is one of joy. I breathe. I feel from my heart. I recognize that joy. Now, as I focus on this spiritual quality of joy, I also see imagination showing up and being utilized in my life on a daily basis. My consciousness becomes one of anticipation. I can imagine feeling that joy. I can imagine moving into that space of contentment as well. This is my reality. This is where I choose to spend time. Breathe again. And with each exhale, I move a little deeper into that space. I feel. I know. As we spend the next minute or two allowing ourselves to utilize that consciousness of joy. As we begin to come out of this meditation, maybe with a deep breath, as we bring our awareness back into this room, before we become totally gone, we claim that awareness of joy, imagination, and contentment as our birthright. We open our eyes, I needed that. That felt good. Now I'll stay. We have another tree with Judy Bernard. Again, she's sending us from Minnesota, and she is singing. I'm not 100% sure. This may be her own song.
This is now the time when we move into our offertory blessing. And we give this opportunity as a chance to remember that we live and move and breathe in circulation and movement. Life flows. So as we give, we receive. And it's through your generous gifts and offerings to Unity of Charlotte that allow us to be here and to continue to be a light in this community and in the world. So I invite you to hold in your hand your gift. If you give online, then just put your hands together and bring to mind that gift as we join in this offertory blessing together. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing that divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.